It's Friday, May 11th, 2018. Or is it? Guy's Daily Drive. Hello there, daily drivers. Trying out a catchphrase, because that's what it's all about, is catchphrases and finding the hook to draw you in to watch these videos. And that kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about, which is perception. Perception, how someone feels about a situation, their perspective on it versus reality or common thought of reality, can be quite different. For example, growing my hair out. I had a ponytail that I grew for a number of years, and it was kind of long, and I mostly kept it tied back. My wife used to say that I looked like a certain James Bond villain. It was the very, very last Sean Connery James Bond. And there were two guys that were like trying to kill him throughout the whole movie. I think they were like Mr. Green and Mr. Brown, something like that. And one of them was bald on top of his head and had long hair in the back. So when my wife said that I looked like this guy, I was like, okay, so you're comparing me to a somewhat inept Bond villain who was also probably gay. That was somewhat implied in the movie that these two guys were gay. And that was a mistake, because she perceived that as approval for the jibe, to make fun of me using that. So for the rest of the time that I had that, or if I let my hair grow, after I cut it really short, funny story there, after I cut it really short, if I ever let it grow out a little bit, she'd look at me and say, "Oh, going for the gay Bond look again, huh?" And it was like, oh, no. When my hair was long before, I'm going to tell you the story. When my hair was long before, everybody where I work was pretty much used to seeing it that way. And it was significantly longer than most of the other people in the office that I worked in. And I was kind of taken aside by somebody that I respect. And he told me that, you're in a position of management, and that maybe you should reconsider the whole hippie look, the whole having your hair tied back in a ponytail. So I was like, damn, okay. So after I went to that first Macworld in 2007, I got back, and you can see how long my hair was in some of those videos. I got back and it was like, okay, I'm going to bow to convention as I perceived it. See where I went there? And I went to a local place to get a haircut. Now, not having had a serious haircut in a while, I wasn't quite up on how bartenders and hairstylists and all the rest of that, the language that they used in trying to determine how long or how short you wanted your hair. Oh, this guy. Okay. Anyway, some people's kids. So I sat down in the chair, and the woman came over to cut my hair. And English was not her first language. And that's, this isn't about people who come to this country from other places or how well versed they are in English or any of the rest of that nonsense, because it's not what it's about. But there was a language disconnect in what she said to me and how I perceived it, and what I said back to her and how she perceived that. It all ties it together. So she's standing there, I've got my hair is down, and it's, she's already done the wash and condition, and it's hanging down off the back of my, onto my back. And I told her that, I'd like to cut it a little shorter. And she's got her clippers in her hand, and she says, two? You want a two? To which I thought she meant 2 inches. And I thought about it, and it was like 2 inches. That's a little shorter than I really wanted. But in for a penny, in for a pound. So I said, sure. And what I didn't understand was she didn't mean 2 inches. She was asking if I wanted her clippers set to the second position, which is much, much, much shorter than 2 inches. It's practically, it's practically a buzz cut. And as a matter of fact, it pretty much was a buzz cut. And I didn't understand that when she said it. And she wasn't really sure what I wanted when I agreed to it. So she gets her clippers out and turns them on and does the first swipe. And I see down on the floor, because basically she went from the center of the back of my head all the way to the front. And I just see this massive, massive chunk of hair just fall to the ground. And it was like, oh crap. It was an oh crap moment. And she stopped. She must have seen the look of horror on my face. And she stopped. She says, is that too short? And it's like, well, it doesn't really matter now, does it? What are you going to do? You do a cut that short, you're kind of stuck with it. This is what's going to happen. You're going to get a haircut that's going to be like that all the way around. So she goes ahead and she finishes. And when she got done, I looked at myself in the mirror. I hardly recognized myself. It was so short. And I'd had longer hair for years. And it was like, wow. And I paid for the haircut, of course, and tipped her, because the fact that we didn't communicate what each of us expected was not her fault, and it wasn't my fault. It was a combination of things such as a language barrier and what each of us was understanding what we thought the other person was saying. So I wasn't going to gig her or not give a tip or any of the rest of that, simply because either I didn't communicate what I wanted well enough, or she didn't communicate what she was going to do well enough. There's no point in getting angry about something like that, because what are you going to accomplish? And in the long run, does it really matter? Hair will grow back. But to finish the story, I went into work the next day, And the first person to see now where I work at the time, it was a big open area with lots of cubes. It was like a cube farm. So many people work in places like this. So I walk in, and nobody really saw me when I first came in. And finally, I was almost to my desk when a guy that I have known since mid-late 80s, when we worked together at another job, stood up, turned around, saw me, and did a double take. You hear about double takes, but you rarely see anybody actually do a double take. But he did a double take. It was like, whoa, whoa. And said very, very loudly in this wide open room, "Holy effing excrement," to put it politically correct in polite terms, but really super loud. And of course, everybody like meerkats popped up. If you don't know what meerkats are, look it up, because in context that's very funny. Stood up and looked, and I felt like an animal on display in a zoo. It was like, yes, my hair is short now. So that can be like the consequences of perception and misunderstanding what people are saying. Another thing about perception can have absolutely nothing to do with miscommunication and just what someone's preference is over somebody else's preference. For example, my wife and I have enjoyed a television show, The Big Bang Theory. I talked about TV the other day. For many, many years. And for the most part, it has been, in our opinion, pretty good. It's been a good show, well worth the 20 minutes or so, minus commercials, that it takes to watch it on television. My son hates that show. My son Guy just can't stand it. Hates the show with a passion. And anytime it casually comes up in conversation, or anytime he can force it to come up in conversation, that's a whole other thing. Oh, he will rail about Chuck Lorre and about how it's written, and blah, 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 blah. It's an awful show, and I don't know why everybody likes it, blah, blah, blah. And I try to explain to him that not everyone has to like the same shows that he does. Not everyone has to like the same movies, the same music, or the same books, or the same ideas, or really the same anything that he does. And it all comes down to not only personal preference, but perception. And he doesn't get that. And a lot of people don't get that. The whole thing is, and it's almost become a meme in itself. You either have to like everything that I do, or you are my enemy. Politics is a great example of that these days. There is no common ground anymore. It's all with us or against us. And who started it and where it began, who's right, who's wrong, roughly comes down to perception and preference. But just because we may or may not agree on politics doesn't mean that there can't be common ground. And that's that's something that people need to consider. Instead of going out of your way to belittle someone else, try to find common ground, the things that you can agree on, instead of being so tuned in to the things that are different. There's an old saying that goes, before you judge someone, walk a mile in their shoes. I think the modern equivalent might be, before you condemn someone, and that's really what we're talking about, not only take a look at their Twitter stream, but think about what you think the next person's tweet might be. Because it gives you a chance to try to get into their head. See things from their perspective, instead of just being so tuned into your own. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can reach me by my email address, which is guy@mymac.com or guy@mttfgo.com. My Twitter handle is MacParrot. You can also reach me, I don't know why you would, via our Skype number, 703-436-9501. And you can also find me on the MyMac Podcast I do with Mr. Gazmaz every single week, going on 8 years now. Also, the Mac to the Future livecast that I do on Wednesday nights, typically with Mr. Warren Sklar. You find that over on the Books of Face. And if you'd like to see me in person, this summer I'm going to be at the MacStock Conference and Expo on July 21st and 22nd in Woodstock, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. It's going to be a great show. This is the 4th year that this conference has been going on. You can find out more information about that conference at basically just Google MacStock Expo and it'll come up. That's usually the best way to do it. There's a coupon code, MyMac, all one word, MYMAC, which will get you $70 off the already ridiculously low price of $249 for the entire conference. Nothing else that you have to buy, nothing else that you have to add. Of course, your food outside of the conference and lodging and transportation is still pretty much on you. Don't be stupid. So, thanks for watching, guys. Daily Drive, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.